Wait a minute. Thank you. It was.
It's how you say it.
Happy Hanukkah.
That works.
Happy.
You're gonna bring up Sanctuary City? That was in response to, I am absolutely not. Don't worry.
Madam Mayor, we're live.
Good evening, everyone.
I think
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, December 12th.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I apologize. They were just finishing up. I heard them coming in.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Once again, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, December 12th, special City Commission meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triola.
Here.
Vice Mayor Scott Maxwell.
Here.
Commissioner Omari Hardy.
Here.
Commissioner Andy Amoroso.
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
Thank you.
If everyone would please rise for the invocation and the pledge. The invocation led by Commissioner Hardy.
Dear Lord, we seek blessings on the tasks before us. Please bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. Amen.
Amen.
Commissioner Robinson, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions, deletions, reordering?
Yes, Madam Mayor. The presentation regarding the Lake Worth mapping given by our GIS, we had a little technical difficulty, so it's being rescheduled for a time uncertain at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that is
Amen.
moving to a time uncertain, item 5B.
And Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to request that we delete resolution number 75-2017, setting the ballot. We all know that individuals qualified, but I've got a little legal research to do on setting the ballot, so I'd like to take that off the agenda and bring it back in January.
Is that time out?
Yes.
Is it time?
It'll either be the January 16th meeting, and if it needs to be earlier than that, we'd consider a special meeting, but we think there's enough time. Other cities still are in the midst of qualifying.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
can we announce the
Yes.
qualifying candidates so there's no confusion about that? Would that be helpful, Mayor?
Yes, please.
For the position of mayor, Drew A. Martin and Pam Triola, and for Commission District 1, Sarah Parmalega and Scott Maxwell have qualified. And for Commission District 3, the only candidate qualified is Mr. Amoroso.
Congratulations are in order. Thank you. Okay. All right, then. It's going to be a very brief meeting. Then we have our presentations, pre-session update and briefing from Tallahassee presented by Mr. Pinsky.
Great, thank you, Mayor, council members. Welcome, greetings from Tallahassee. It's the only, it was cold. It was colder here this weekend than it was in Tallahassee. And so I thank you for the opportunity. There are several bills that have been introduced, and I know I've heard from a couple of the council members as far as particular bills of interest. So I'll try to answer all the questions we can tonight. I do expect to see all of you at various times in Tallahassee this session, not just Palm Beach County Day, and including the city manager, who likes to make an appearance now and then. Love to see you. And it really does make a difference. So I also invited Representative Al Jaquette tonight and Senator Bobby Powell, who both had intended to stop by and send their greetings as well as answer any questions. Senator Powell and both Representative Jaquette backed out at the last
What's going on tonight?
I don't know. It's Hanukkah, first night of Hanukkah.
That's true.
So that could be very well what's keeping them at the moment.
I would like to ask just for a brief second, City Manager, that we said this last year, that we take into further consideration the fact that we have Hanukkah every year, and there always seems to be a meeting falling on this holiday, and it's ridiculous that we should even schedule one at that time. So can we please not ever do that again?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Keeping in mind that there's 8 days of Hanukkah.
That's fine. Well,
It's a festival.
well, you know
Excuse
what?
me, it's a festival. It's not, it's not the same as setting it on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. And we did We tried our best. We did whatever we could. I apologize.
Well, I just, city staff is off for Columbus Day, for crying out loud, and this is a holiday that, anyway.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Thank
Amoroso got his Hanukkah gift tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So how do I get the presentation on the screen?
Just say you want it and it magically
It
appears.
magically will appear.
I like that.
Okay, so let's start with some quick session facts. As you know, session starts January 9th, and unusually so, 60-day calendar session we have in Florida concludes on March 9th. And as a reminder, this is unusual, but it's going to be the case for every other even year from now on. That it's not just going to be March, April sessions, but in even years, election years, it's going to always start in January. So it's going to take a while till these things catch up. To date, and the last day of filing a bill is at the gavel on January 9th. There's 500 House bills that have been filed so far, 650 Senate bills have been filed so far. Approximately, that should be 200, not 2,200. My finger I didn't realize I proofed this twice, but 1,200 local government project funding requests totaling almost $2 billion have been filed so far. There's about $50 million in the budget for these projects. So you can see some things are going to happen. Not good for some local governments. The budget proposal Rick Scott introduced proposed this $87.3 billion budget for the next fiscal year. Last year, for this current fiscal year, it was an $83 billion budget. So you can see he proposed a $4 billion extra, including $180 million tax break. Now the legislature takes over. They can either reject or accept any of its proposals as they begin to craft their own budget. The House writes the budget this year, and we wish good things for the city of Lake Worth. But here are the bills that we've been tracking each week. We during committee weeks in Tallahassee, we try to send to your city manager those bills that we've been filing, and Michael and I have been going back and forth, as well as in some Constitutional Revision Commission proposals as well. The first bill that may be of interest are the community redevelopment, the CRA bill. This is gaining some attention in that in 2029, I think 10 years from now, all CRAs will sunset their taxing authority. In order for CRA after that time to renew its taxing authority, it will have to pass a local referendum for it to continue for another 10 years. So this was part of an ongoing effort that's been going on for the past few years regarding CRAs. The next is a public meeting bill by Representative Rick Roth here in Palm Beach County and Senator Baxley. The Senate bill has been getting a lot of traction. This is the bill that would greatly restrict the ability for 2 council members, special districts, county commissioners, when traveling or holding informal meetings. Let's say you're traveling to the League of Cities meeting. This would greatly inhibit your ability to, after a session, turn to one another and say, hey, that was really good. You know, that would be something good for our city. We ought to talk about bringing that back. That would no longer be allowed. Someone would have to be there taking minutes or recording what your conversation is. It would also have to be publicly noticed. So these informal meetings Kesnell is here with Representative Al Jaquette's office. I just gave apologies to Representative Jaquette, and could not make it. So Kesnell's is a great help in Tallahassee. The next is House bill, this growth management bill. This is every local government would have to. Now the good news is this bill has not been scheduled for a hearing yet, and we're running out of time already, even though session hasn't started. But this would require everybody's comp plan, the Lake Worth comp plan, to include an element just for protection of private property rights. And so every time you would try to do something, you'd also have to explain why this is not going to infringe, hamper any economic development or private property rights. More work for you, I know. The next is the local tax referendum that is being introduced by Blaise Ingoglia. Representative Ingoglia, as you know, is also the chairman of the state Republican Party here in Florida. This bill is also getting some traction now. anything that you would want to do as far as a local tax referendum would have to be go to referendum at a general election. So what you did last year at your March ballot, you would not be able to do again. You'd not only have to have it go to the local voters, but you'd have to do it either in a primary, statewide primary, or a statewide November election. And like I said, that bill is getting some traction in the House. Linear facilities, for those active in the league, you know that these types of bills have been preemption bills have been opposed right along. This one now includes electric utilities and gets at a court case that the Public Service Commission took the position that they could not force, in this case, let's say an FP&L, to underground at the cost of FP&L expense. Went to court, third DCA said, no, they did have that authority to do that. And so what this bill does is puts it back pre the court decision to make sure that the PSC can't tell FP&L what to do in this case for undergrounding. It'll go for all utilities. This bill is of course opposed by local government, and but it's going to probably pass anyway. The next bill is the permit fees. By the way, this whole session, if you're going to call it a moniker, if you're going to give it a name, it would be assault on local government. The next is the permit fees. I think this is not a problem, but you would be required to do it from now on if this bill passes. Again, the bill has not been heard in either chamber, but you'd have to post all permit fees on your website. There's a few vacation rental bills going on, and I don't think any of these bills are going to get heard. None of these bills have companions. All the bills we mentioned so far do have companions. And from what I gather and what I'm told, there's just no appetite this year to handle Airbnb, any vacation rental stuff going on. You never know. It may happen. Mike LaRosa, in leadership, it's a perennial bill he's tried to do the last couple of years, which is basically a uniform ordinance that would change your ordinance throughout the city for everything. And that's how you would be able to regulate vacation rentals. So it's not a practical solution. Representative Stevenson, Senate House Bill 789, is actually a friendly bill that would force vacation rental folks to post the certificate. And Senator Stubbe has a bill that would force hotel motel lodgings to relieve the ability to force people to stay more than one night. The next is the county municipal public officers employees. Good news, these bills have not been scheduled for a hearing, but you could kiss travel goodbye if this bill passes, and for any employees, you wouldn't be able to travel basically out of the country at all. Not that everybody's wants to go overseas, but it would greatly limit what you would be able to do and how you would be able to travel as employees, city manager, elected officials. You'd have to come to a city council meeting. The public would have to have time to give input on that approval of travel, and all the expenses would have to be published ahead of time, what you anticipated before a nickel could be spent, and travel. So you can imagine how cumbersome that would be for local government to have administrative or ministerial decisions like that made just to go up to a League of Cities meeting, let's say in Orlando. The next is domestic wastewater collection system. These bills, I doubt, are gonna get a hearing. It would be a good thing, but this establishes what they're going to call a Blue Star program. So if you are a good municipal utility, let's say, you actually would get grant money available to you. You would get certified that way, and there would be other advantages to becoming signified as a Blue Star program participant. And like I said, unfortunately, I don't think this bill is going to go anywhere, but the concept is great. Impact fees, House Bill 697 by Mike Miller. That one's not moving, but Senator Dana Young's bill is, and it would basically say any impact fees coming from a local government, you could not collect them any sooner than the day that the applicant gets the certificate of occupancy or final approval to open a business or do whatever. So no impact fee collection until the threshold of certificate of occupancy or final approval that you can do what you're going to do.
We don't get them anyway.
Well stated.
You're not going to get them now either. Then another bill, another bill that would be great would be the Florida Smart City Challenge through DOT. Those of you that have participated on the MPO, you're familiar with the smart cities. How great this would be to have integrated mobility programs from bicycle, public transit, etc. And this would actually create a $15 million fund that cities would be able to access. But because it has a price tag on it, it's not going to happen this year, unfortunately. Just telling you like it is, folks. Now, the rest of these bills are hodgepodge. House Bill 715 allows, and the companion 1108, they're worded a little differently. These bills might actually get a hearing. It will allow local governments, so if you're doing a public project, it would allow that contractor to take advantage of you purchasing the materials or saving on sales tax and using your purchasing power, et cetera, instead of going through the My Florida marketplace. But it would allow a good public-private partnership to get public projects done. And the next one is the, did I skip one right now?
You skipped ethics.
Boom, boom, boom. What did I just do? See, you put one of these things in my hand, and
I think you're watching college football.
exactly. What's up on the screen?
You want
Public
fast
deposits.
passport.
Okay. Okay, the one that's up on the screen, which is what I'll go by, these
fast
bills
forward
are
it again.
probably not going to go anywhere. This is the plastic bag, that you can't have any plastic bags in
Go
your
back to
city.
the ethics one that you
Oh,
skipped.
the ethics. Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Perfect. That's the one I'm on. Lake Worth already, you comply with most of this in Palm Beach County, so this wouldn't really impact a lot of what's inside of this bill. It's a rather long bill, but it was heard as a pre-committee bill, as sort of a committee discussion, and immediately went to the calendar. So the House is fast tracking this. It's going to come out of the House probably the first week of session, and then run down to the Senate, and I'm sure it will happen. But it includes what hasn't been here heretofore: water management districts, special districts, but most of the things we do in Palm Beach County, you do in Lake Worth, are already in here, so it's going to not be so impactful to you. The local government electric utility bill, and is a good thing for you in the sense that in place right now, you have procedures you have to do as far as public records, et cetera, and that was sunsetting. So people, proprietary information that you may have with vendors or whoever was going to be made public. This basically reinstates the public records exemption for your municipal electric authority. I missed the PACE bill. Where did I put that? Okay, right there. This bill is public deposits. Lake Worth has a PACE. Allowing people to do hardening and energy improvements to their home, and it goes on their tax roll. Right now, the way it is that a city or county can do that, and Lake Worth is one of those local governments. This bill would put it back to the way that the court case that challenged it, that banks would be back in the first position. So if someone ever defaulted or if something got paid back, the banks would get paid first before the government would. Which is of course is supported by the banks, and would basically reverse everything that PACE stands for. The next bill is the interruption of service for municipal government, and I doubt this bill will get heard by Randy Fine. This is during a hurricane or any time that your local municipal service goes down, electric. Like if you have a 2-hour, brownout or something that goes on, you cannot charge a customer for that time that the utility goes down, or your garbage service, or whatever whatever utility service the municipality or local government gives to the citizens. And then finally, last but not least, our wonderful Park of Commerce appropriation. And Representative Jaquette, of course, is our sponsor in the House. Senator Bobby Powell is our sponsor in the Senate. The Senate doesn't do bills the way that the House does, but thanks to Kesnel, he did everything. He filed it on time. There's proof positive. We're in the system, and we have a House bill number. And at some point soon, it could be the first or second week in January, we're going to get noticed that our bill is actually going to get a hearing in committee. And I'll be there, but it would be far more impactful
I will be there.
if the mayor, somebody from this elected official from Lake Worth would come and give testimony.
I will be there.
The only one is a quick, 2-minute, but it's very, very important. So good. All right, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'd love to call on you, but I'm not the mayor.
I've just got one question. Is there a dollar amount attached to that appropriation at this time?
Ours?
Yes,
Yes.
for the Park of Commerce. What is that dollar?
1.5 million.
1.5. Okay.
Started at 3.
Well, it was approved last year.
It's approved. It's been approved 2 times at 3. Or no, 2.5 and 3.
3 times.
Yeah,
3 times.
Don't, please. It hurts me to go back and.
It hurts
Yes.
you.
This time it's going to work.
4th time's a charm.
Are you taking questions?
If your buzzer's ringing,
No, I actually,
answer. Oh.
the light of my life has got his light on.
It's a Hanukkah. It's the first. It's the
It's the
Hanukkah.
first
candle.
Okay, first of all, Richard, thank you. And I want to thank Mr. Jaquette's aide for being here. And I'm going to direct it towards him.
Were you prepared to speak, or are you just here?
I just want to make some comments. Home rule, home rule, home rule. Home rule, I can't say it enough, home rule. And just, I want to make a couple points just so you know what it looks like in Lake Worth. So medical marijuana in Lake Worth, we have 2 facilities in the city of Lake Worth, which is 7 square miles. We now have a moratorium. But what came out of Tallahassee was all or nothing. So when we lift our moratorium, we could get more in the city of Lake Worth. That's what home rule, and I call it the attack on home rule. That's what the attack on home rule looks like in the city of Lake Worth. Also CRAs. We have an award-winning CRA. We are doing phenomenal things in our city with our CRA. I'm the liaison to the CRA, and our CRA, I believe it sunsets in 2011. So, and that's right around the corner. 21? Huh? 2021. Yeah, okay. No, wait.
2007.
No, 20. In
in
11
the future.
years is what I'm trying to say. I think it sunsets in 11 years, which is right around the corner. So, the attack on home rule hits hard for us, a small town, 7 square miles. We need to make those decisions for our electeds, for our citizens, and make those decisions and keep it close to home because, again, those have huge impacts for us. Going back to Richard, our ask in Tallahassee, we need a flyer. We need something that we can leave behind. I was just in Florida League of Cities and talking to some of the aides, and the aides said they move so many people through and they get it, and sometimes you're just talking to the aides, but they need to see it. So just like Commissioner Hardy asked, well, what's our ask? How much is it? We need, it's only a couple items, but we need something that says City of Lake Worth,
1 sheet.
this is our ask, 1 sheet. It needs to pop, it needs to have the who, what, where, that we can leave behind, that they remember us.
Yellow paper.
Absolutely. The only other thing too
This year we want it to be green.
the only other thing that jumps out at me is the pace. We need more PR for that. I'm not hearing a lot in the city. It's a program that we have, but I don't know what we need to do to, advertise that more. There's not a lot of people using it, and, I don't know whether we do that or Pace does that or.
Talk to the bank.
generally the providers, and we are now pretty much a free market system, as well as contractors who are looking for work, offering it up as alternatives for funding sources. So there's really a lot of free market data that's out there. We're looking at some ways to maybe improve that. So to your point, Commissioner, we'll bring it back.
I've been contacted too by several homeowner, companies or whatever, saying that you're now a part of the PACE program if you want to put solar on your roof.
Right.
If you want to do
Wind hardening, windows.
Yeah.
Correct.
I've gotten those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it at the moment. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Just a couple of real quick questions, Richard. First of all, Rick Scott wants to increase the budget. Do we know what he is looking at for that increase of whatever it was, $4 billion? Or $0.4 billion or whatever the heck it
Not the
was?
Parker Commerce.
No, it wasn't the Park of Commerce, I'm quite sure.
He has, like I said, there's like tax cuts are in there, but in the healthcare space, he's increased it significantly, as well as per pupil spending is where most of the increases have been. And so if you looked at the first 4 years when he drastically cut education funding and healthcare funding, you can say in the last 3 years, he's trying to make up for it. And I think this gets us back to just about where we were before when he took office at February.
Also, I'm wondering if it might not be an interesting idea for us to ask Richard to come back and give us a presentation on the Constitutional Review Commission and what they're doing. There are a few particular recommendations of the 102 that I think are very, very important to us. One has to do with unfunded mandates, and that's a pretty exciting initiative. I don't know if y'all have heard about that, but that certainly needs we need to get behind that big time. I'm a little concerned, though. You mentioned that this is going to be the assault on home rule. My bigger concern is the distraction that's going to take place in Tallahassee over some of these scandals. These scandals are going to get bigger and more exponential in their reach. And I really don't want us as local officials or the lobbyists or anybody else to lose sight of the fact that while they're looking over here at this little shiny object with all the scandals, that they're shoving all this stuff down our throats. So how do we keep ourselves from falling victim to that?
Well, and I'll answer it this way. The Senate seems to be more impacted than the House. So the House, for whatever reason, the Speaker is moving his agenda. He's got a very clear agenda. They write the budget this year, meaning they're the ones that offer the first document, and they're the ones that right before it goes to the desk, balances all those little numbers at the end. So the advantage on the House side all the way around the session. The Senate, they're, without gossiping or getting into all the tweets and everything that's going on, but the Senate is going to have some difficulty getting things done this session in a strong fashion. So the budget will end up, what it is. It's going to be. It is what it is. The budget is not going to be as impactful. The biggest question on the budget: will it get done by March 9th? It doesn't have to get done until June. So they do their revenue estimating, and I would imagine the revenue estimating is going to be rosier come March and April and May than it will be in January, February when they're writing the budget. So do they finish it, or do they just say we're going to come back in May and June, or April, May for a special session and finish the budget? That's the biggest question on the budget. But these bills, there will be very few bills that will be passed this session, just because it's an election year. The process worked out such that here we are January 9th. I think there's only 29 bills going to the House calendar right now. Very few bills have been making it through to even get a hearing. So you just don't have but 4 weeks when session starts for House to hear bills. And with 3 committee references, that's just not even enough time. So there will be a lot of bills that do not make it this year. This will probably be a very low number, so in that way, our life, liberty, and worldly possessions are safe for the time being. CRC, your manager communicates on a regular basis with me about those. I'll be up in Tallahassee attending a couple of the CRC meetings on Thursday. The General Provisions Committee, I watch them every day. Today, the Environmental Committee had passed a couple of bills. Jackie Thurlow Lipschitz from Martin County had one setback on her bill, on her proposal. So I watch them. Don't know if unfunded mandates is going to make it in, quite frankly. So you got 37 members appointed by the governor, the speaker, and the Senate president, which will be more moderate members, and then a few by the Supreme Court. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the CRC for the ballot.
Well, I guess my more direct question is what, if anything, has been discussed at the county level as far as the delegation is concerned to really put the pressure on these committees, because I mean, at the end of the day, Palm Beach County still carries a lot of weight. And what I found with the League of Cities, while they rolled out the objectives very nicely and everybody's nodding their heads, I think I went back and said, well, look, I think maybe we need to put exactly that step by step what you want us to do in the order that you want us to do it, who you want us to call, when you want to, at what committees and what days based on the hearings. Do we have that type of a vision or plan to attack this as far, or I shouldn't say attack, but to address these committee members in advance of their hearings, to let them know that, one way or the other, how we feel about this?
Again, yes, absolutely, and that's just the kind of feedback that I want, and we do. It is just not good for local government. I can't say it any plainer, any better. You have the League of Cities and the Association of Counties. In addition to Lake Worth, I also represent. I'm on the Miami-Dade County team, and it is a continual battle. And the nature of the legislature and many of these CRC members, I don't know what it is when you are a local elected official, and the minute you get elected to the legislature, you become anti-local government. Now I know a lot of it is leadership because you have to do what you have to do, but you would think everyone in the legislature did not rise up the ranks from local government. The way that the bills are filed and the way that local government is treated, it's
well, they're
they're
mostly lawyers that get elected, and then they're surprised when they run for local office, and they go, "Who passed these stupid laws?" And it was like, "You did."
Well, I guess let me take another bite at this apple. At the end of the day, maybe they didn't get the memo, but they work for us. It's not the other way around. Okay, and if we're not going to stand up and collectively and say, this is which way is up, then of course they're going to run us over. So again, I ask the question, what is the county doing officially as far as our delegation is concerned to weigh in on these issues?
Well, since you've asked the question yet another way, I'll answer it yet another way. Yes, we are powerful, but at the end of the day, it is a Republican-controlled legislature. And Palm Beach County, but for 3 members, are all Democrats. And our delegation, as the way Broward and some of Miami-Dade, but Broward and Palm Beach, in Tallahassee and the rest of the state, we're viewed to the left of center. We're not viewed as a county that represents right of center.
Well, perhaps it's time that both delegations of both counties come together and fight as one to get things done as far as the CRC is concerned.
Commissioner Robinson?
Thank you for keeping us informed. Cumbersome and transparency are sometimes at odds. Which is more important? Cumbersome only creates more work, but transparency is a good thing. In terms of getting people elected, what's the timeline on the mapping for redistricting, gerrymandering?
Point of order.
You missed your GIS report, I know, so I knew you were going to get it down to mapping somehow. In the 2020 session, well, the People are behind closed doors now writing maps. But in 2020, after the census is done, the 2021 session, they will finalize maps for presentation in the 2022 session, which will then be on the 2022 November ballot. And it is in that legislature that new lines will, members will be elected from those new lines. So 2020 is the last time that members are elected from the current map. 2022 will be the first time members are elected from the new map.
And they're working on new maps now, you said.
I said I know there are people
And
working
is the
on
League
it.
of
Who is
Cities-
they is where we have to define.
Well, it's a concern.
There are many political operatives working on maps now, yes.
And
from both
is
parties.
the League of Cities consider the importance of, say, a tiny Lake Worth being divided among at least two representatives?
Well, now the way that districts, fair districts, and the way that the court has reconciled minority access districts with fair districts, which, as you know, we had that court case, we had that conflict in Florida, is that there are certain criteria, and I can't remember all of them. One of them is not just demographic, but geographically trying to maintain populations like the city of Lake Worth. And I know we ended up currently with 3 House members and a Senate, but I believe next time, because of the court case, we are going to end up more wholly compact than where we are now. But yes, that's one of the considerations now in the fair districts.
And will you provide us with the, not the 500 bills, but the ones that you presented tonight?
Can we get a copy?
In writing? Thanks.
Well, I see you in Tallahassee.
If the transportation budget allows it, you know, yes.
Okay. Oh,
Commissioner Hardy?
Sure. I understand that this has died, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that Senator Chris Smith's proposal number 61 and the Constitution Revision Commission has died. It's the one about not preempting local governments. It basically requires the legislature to state with specificity the statewide impact of whatever it is that they're trying to preempt before they do that. We just passed a resolution on our consent agenda last week in support of that.
that was on one of the unfunded mandate ones. I think that got voted on. It was today, or maybe that was last Thursday. I was
under the understanding, based on media reports, and please correct me, that was kind of on the way out. In either case, can we be sure to transmit that resolution to the Constitution Revision Commission, Mr. City Manager?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will find out the exact status. Now, just because it's died in committee, and I don't know if Senator Smith's going to bring it back to the full. There's 37 members, right. But just because a proposal dies in committee at a CRC committee, they do have the opportunity to bring it before the full commission.
Okay.
So he may still. So it may not be the final resolution on that. So you would still be able to try to get support for it. But I will find. Are you sure it's proposal 61?
We passed a resolution on it last week.
I may look it up right now, but I'll find out where it is, and then I know he had a proposal up today. I think of the Judicial Committee. I don't know what, but I was looking at it with one eye today. But yeah.
Okay, and the other thing is, and I think this seems to be consensus among anyone who kind of looks at things more holistically, but the importance of education to cities can't really be overstated. Even though we silo these functions, we have a school district and we have a city, and they work separately and hopefully together in informal ways. It's really important. And in our own comprehensive plan, we have a policy in there that I believe is new that basically says we need to be aware of education-friendly bills moving through either chamber, and to basically use whatever kind of input that we have, opportunities to provide input or support to support education-friendly bills. I think I said at the last meeting, I would like, first of all, for us to kind of define for ourselves as a body what it means for a bill to be education-friendly. I understand in my perception that means public education. I certainly would not consider House Bill 7069, which passed last session, to be education-friendly. But I think, first of all, after we define for ourselves what education-friendly means, I think we should hear regularly about education bills moving through either chamber. And, I don't know if, what we can get from you before you go back, because I understand you're very busy and we're kind of springing this on you. But I certainly would like to be aware about any bills having to do with education. And I think for most people in the city, they would want us to use our resources to support bills that might help us in, as far as education goes in the city. Could we do that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I've not been flagging, I'm aware of a lot of the proposals. There's some bills that right now, and maybe Kesnel may know more, making sure that homeschool and private school kids get to participate in public school sports.
Important, yeah.
And then also on the PICO dollars, making sure that those capital outlay dollars are available to private schools and charter schools. And so I wouldn't necessarily, so depending on which side of the education, are those friendly or those?
Yeah, and that's exactly why I said that as a body, we need to define and put it in stone, and maybe it changes from body to body, but we need to put it in stone what we consider to be education friendly. I certainly don't consider it to be education friendly that unaccountable private schools and unaccountable chartered schools, some of them for profit, get to dip into our infrastructure dollars, such as the penny sales tax. I certainly don't think that's education friendly, and I think we need to have that discussion so that we can advocate as a body for bills that we like, that affect us, because we've got overcrowding in these schools, and our schools kind of take a back seat to schools in other areas of the county, in particular out west, because the overcrowding issues are so great there. So every single dollar that gets taken out of those PICO funds and used by charter schools, I don't know if that's occurred as of yet. I honestly don't know what the situation is there, but that certainly harms our ability to increase capacity at our school. Highland Elementary is over capacity. It's $22,000 a student station. We need to be advocating for our schools there, and so I certainly think we should.
I've made a note. I'm going to go back through and look at all the education bills.
I appreciate it. And then the other thing is, this is not so much about this legislative session, but generally, the mayor made a point about impact fees. It's kind of like a comical point, but and I don't mean to divide people, right? And I don't mean to make political hay in the process of dividing people. But the fact is, there are lots of geographic inequities here in the county that I think we need to be more vocal about. I'm really tired of seeing our impact fee money being raised here at the coastal urban, in these urban dense areas where people want to work, be shipped out west to wine roads and encourage bad development patterns, and being shipped out really to benefit people who live in municipalities that are much richer than us. I think that needs to become a lobbying priority of ours. I don't know if you do that sort of stuff, but I think
I'm smiling because the mayor and I and Commissioner Amoroso and Vice Mayor, I'm very opinionated on the county formula on impact fees and the coastal communities east of I-95.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, I would love to, offline, sit down and give you.
And if I had a
gospel
light,
as I sit.
if I had a light, I'd be back.
you got one of
We
these.
go to every MPO meeting. And,
Okay.
And they are so sick of me speaking up every single time that I do that, but I brought it up numerous times. In fact, we actually had a special meeting of the MPO in which many of the municipalities, which I thought was a good start, were standing by our side. Usually it's just kind of me going, and what about us?
Right.
And this time around, everybody kind of stood up at that meeting for us. And I showed the example of exactly how much money the city has received in the many millions that we've given to the county. and it was sad to say the least. I can't remember what was it like $30,000 project, and we had put in $6 million or something like that. It was ridiculous. And with that said, you know, we're arguing now with the county. Of course, the county doesn't want to give up they're not going to give up that money. That's a formula. The problem is that when you look at this would be a good topic for a workshop and actually bring some of those people in. What's interesting is that when you look at when I mentioned the 5-year plan, the long range plan, you know, all these different projects, how they classify road projects. A lot of these projects were planned 10, 20 years ago. So the things we're starting to see that I've mentioned this before at a couple of meetings and maybe a while before you guys were in, but you know, maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, they wanted in Wellington a flyover at 441. They already expanded to God knows what, 8 lanes in every direction of 441 and Forest Hill Boulevard.
3 turning lanes?
Yeah, 3 turn lanes and 4 travel lanes and whatever it is, and they wanted flyovers back then. Well, guess what? It's all been built up now, and there's housing communities in those areas, and those people don't want to live they don't want to fly over their hair. Same thing with PGA Boulevard, going through the same thing there. And these are the arguments that I hear at MPO all the time. These projects were planned back 15, 20 years ago because they have to be on those long-range transportation plans. When, remember, the push was westward ho. It was, we're going to go out there, we're going to raise our kids in A-rated schools and gated communities and whatever. Now those people, now that the focus is on US 1. That's where I've been trying to divert the dollars back onto Dixie Highway, back onto Federal Highway, where we can, because the dollars haven't been planned long ago. So none of those projects are coming to fruition right now. In addition, the impact fees are being planned for things that were approved back then too. So we're seeing nothing, and we're getting all the traffic of a modern day urban environment, and nothing's being done for it.
I agree wholeheartedly. No, and that's a fiery presentation that I can tell and I've been talking to other people. You've given them that before. I just think I don't know if we need to make a special effort out of this geographic inequity problem on a few fronts: impact fees, economic development dollars, and capacity funds with the school district, basically. I think it's really important that money that gets raised here in urban areas with needs, right, where people have not chosen to flee, should be spent here. And I think we need to make that broader equity argument,
And I'll follow up with that with saying that right now, because we finally have the support of some of our other municipalities who are speaking out in reference to this, and because we have very vocal members, including myself, in some of those organizations that keep banging the drum, I think that there's going to be some sort of meeting in the middle, maybe. I'm hopeful. You're shaking your head. I can see the eyeballs rolling. I'm hopeful.
The MPO is, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you want your impact fees to be for roads, and that's where it could be spent. So at the end of the day, the MPO seems to be more interested in being an independent MPO than they are in fixing the formula with the county. That is where the issue is.
What if they could do both?
If they could do both, great, but I mean, you've got the Palm Beach County League of Cities, and you have the MPO that should be leading the charge on a new formula by which the county calculates impact fees.
Now, does that have to go into the, I'm sorry, does that
Has to go into the county
affect
code.
the charter?
Has to go into the county code.
The code, not the charter. Well, let's get it done.
It goes not into what was the one item that was brought up?
I thought that the benefit zones.
They have to actually re-vote
Yeah.
for it at the county level.
Yeah, the county has to adopt. We don't adopt it.
We
the
don't
county
adopt it.
does.
The county has to then re-vote for the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, all those
it goes to their
municipalities
charter.
east of I-95 have a voice.
Virginia
and
said
each one of those county commissioners represent those municipalities.
Or county areas,
Ms.
they're not
Baker
giving
said,
that up.
Virginia Baker said, I thought it goes to their charter.
That's what I understood.
That's
That
what
the
she
benefit
mentioned, the
zone
charter.
configuration.
It would go back and change the
Formula
charter.
is actually in the code.
It's in the code? Okay. I remember her saying it was one of the MPO
Because that
meetings.
changes. You can't change the charter each time, so they have they review it every 2 years or 3 years, and for the last 15 years, formula's fine, and they keep moving on.
Okay. Well, of course it's fine for them. You still have another one? Is your lights on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Robinson?
Was there Any bill for or against climate change language?
There is a bill, and I think I may have put it up there. There is a bill that Jose Javier Rodriguez has. I did put it up there. I just didn't mention it because it's like plastic bags. It's not going anywhere. But it would require the coastal communities in Florida, before they built anything, would have to do a study on that project and how sea level rise would impact it.
But the state itself isn't addressing it.
The problem is a South Florida problem, particularly Southeast Florida, and so you have, 55, 57 counties in the state that don't think Florida exists below, Kissimmee. So they're certainly not going to be rushing to make sure that sea level rise is a priority for, north central Florida.
Kind of like the sober home industry wasn't a big deal on the west coast of Florida, but it is now, right?
Yeah.
But City Manager, were you,
Is everyone through? Is that?
Vice Mayor? Did you have something?
I just wanted to follow up if they want to tinker with sea level rise. And are we talking about coastal construction line, or are they going to redefine the boundaries?
There hasn't been any talk on coastal construction line. The bill I was referring to is actually gets to construction in a coastal county. And
So on its face, that would mean anything in Palm Beach County, for example.
and Broward and Palm and Miami-Dade in particular. It's really impactful in Miami-Dade. I can't tell you the number of issues that Miami-Dade is facing right now. All of their flood control infrastructure, all of their outfall pipes, everything has to get redone. And quite frankly, they don't. They're not even close. Those are billions of dollars worth of projects that have to get done. So it is, Senate Bill 542, if you care to look into it. It prohibits any state financing of construction projects, any funded projects in coastal areas without first conducting a sea level impact projection study.
But it doesn't deny state money to address existing problems, or, no. So ignore it and it'll go away?
No, it is just, there's a general feeling that while there are regional impact, and there are many, I should say, there are many projects funded last year's budget that were regional, and because it did impact flooding, which was a result of sea level. So they like talking about sea level, they don't like talking about climate change. So if you can relate it to just general, natural habitats being impacted, outfall, flood mitigation, then you're in a safe area. But it's got to be regional or statewide impact. So the Keys, Miami-Dade County, they're getting some attention.
So nobody's from the state's going to Paris to be in any accord of any kind?
I wish he called me and asked me advice, but he doesn't. The governor is this independent guy that does his own thing.
Did you like that?
Just everybody's through.
City Manager?
Every time around this year, I always like to remind everybody, having, like Richard, gone through 30 years or more of state legislature, I always like the saying that neither life nor limb is safe while the legislature is in session. My father always said that, and it's true. They seem to have a penchant for coming up with great ideas on the backs of other entities, and there never seems to be something that's innovative or tremendous leadership style coming out of Tallahassee, especially with the current leadership. And the thing I want to remind you is a legislative session is not about getting good legislation out of the process. It's about killing all the bad stuff. And that's a very pessimistic, awful kind of thing to say, but it's so true. I've seen it. There's hundreds of these. I don't think half of them are well-meaning, but they get filed. And the job of a good lobbyist and of the associations is to try to wheedle those things down and wean the pack out so that we can deal with just the very, the ones that survive, the worst of the worst. And I think, Richard, you've done a great job over the years, along with all your counterparts from other cities, the League of Cities, the Florida Association of Counties, you know, and there's a bunch of other groups up there doing the same thing. So it's the damnedest thing to watch this process. But you got to remember, you know, we never really expect anything good to come out of Tallahassee, and they haven't disappointed. The other good thing about that statement is eventually most of them run for local office, and I said that earlier. And there are people that when they take the seat where you are or on the county commission, and they are shocked to see the effects of laws that they've passed trying to improve the state of Florida on the backs of cities by just constantly haranguing and hamstringing the one place in the country where, you know, there's so much dysfunction and I don't even know what it is in Washington, gridlock. It's that way in Tallahassee. But where people live, where you go to the grocery store and you see your constituents, where you collect the tax money and invest it in infrastructure, and you try to do the noble task of governing and improving people's lives and providing a context for good things to happen, is in cities. Don't expect it to come out of Tallahassee and Washington.
Well, that's the thing. We have to be accountable at the grocery store, in the
Constantly.
restaurant with your husband, in the whatever. You're accountable. You're here. You're in
Yeah.
this community. You work in this community. You live
And
in
they
this community.
continually want to make it difficult on y'all.
And people want us
And
to
it's
solve
frustrating.
problems, and they refuse to give us the ability, tie our hands behind our back and ask us to solve the problems anyway.
We couldn't get money for job creation and infrastructure improvement for 3 years. And it's just, it's difficult.
This year's
with
our
us.
year. Let's be
I'm hoping
positive.
so, and
This
I have a
is our
lot of
year.
faith in our
And
representatives.
I want to say one thing to Commissioner Robinson too, when you mentioned the Paris Accord, something that happened over the summer, and I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I signed on, I was unable to go to the U.S. Conference of Mayors in June in Miami. That was when I ended up in the hospital, and I couldn't walk, and I had no transportation. I had nobody to wheel me around because I couldn't walk from place to place. But anyway, I had in August sent in the forms to fill out for us joining the 100% Renewable City Act, which was the U.S. Conference of Mayors, almost 150 mayors from around creating renewable cities and talking about that. And we are listed as that now. We're pinged on there as one of the cities involved in that, which is basically a representation of the Paris Accord. So we're part of that. In fact, we got a notice back from them in October, and then resubmitted our forms in beginning of the end of November, I think. Sabina sent it in, so we should be official and get our documentation back. Hopefully, we can celebrate that in our first January meeting. So
Good.
That's good news. We're on the map. Lake Worth is.
Just to finish up my point, and I'm getting brain dead, I guess is what it is. The hope, I think, of legislatures is that people at the grassroots level that have your experience take that to Tallahassee. And I don't know that that's happening as much as it should. I know you said that there's some people that forget it. I'm not seeing a lot of people necessarily take the leap of faith after knowing what it is to work at this level, to move up. So, you know, if you want to see transformation, take it from somebody who's been in the game a long time. You need people who have experience and have earned their marks working at local government. It used to be Republicans in the state of Florida, their mantra, and Vice Mayor, you'll remember this, the government closest to the people is the best. What happened to that?
Less government.
What happened to that? They have totally lost their minds. Now, our representatives, of course, not included in that, so I'll...
Did you want to speak? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you don't mind that.
I'd love to, yeah. I wasn't sure.
To the mayor and the commission, and Richard, as always, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. And Richard, thank you for inviting our office. It was good to be here. One thing that I really grabbed is that city, local government is very important, and it's very important to your constituents and the citizens that live here. And you guys mentioned some things, and I heard the representative mention it as well, is that a lot of people legislators file bills every session, and a lot of the people that are impacted are the cities. So one thing that I'm going to take back tonight to Representative Al Jaquette is to be a staunch advocate for you guys, be a staunch advocate for the local government and our constituents, because I agree it is very important. And you mentioned home rule and a lot of other things. So rest assured that I'll take it back to the representative and that he passes that message along to the other legislators. And he always jokes about the Capitol building being where it is. A lot of you folks, and you can't make it as often as you'd like to because it's so far away. But we're hopeful that things will change and that we'll keep you all proud. And again, you know, that's one thing I'll be sure to take back to the representative.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
He gets it. We know that.
Come back again.
Now, do we have another, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hermoso?
And I just wanted to, before we close, I wanted to, a big thank you to you and all the aides, because a lot of times when we get to Tallahassee and Washington, we're meeting with you, we're not necessarily meeting with the representatives, and people think it's all about the representatives, but it's really all about you. A lot of times the representatives will call you in for your expertise in issues or bills, because they can't, know it all. And without you, they can't do it, and we don't have a voice. So I want to thank you for being here tonight, and I want to thank all the aides, because a lot of times it's not about the representative, it's about the people next to them and the people that are doing the hard groundwork and researching the bills and pulling the bills in. So thank you.
If I could give you this gavel, I would.
And Mayor, Representative Al Jaquette, as you know, was a Delray Beach City Commissioner.
I was going to say, he knows. That's why I said he gets it.
So he knows local government, but also the committee assignments that he got as a freshman, he's golden. I mean, he's on the Transportation Economic Development, which has the Park of Commerce project right there. So, and he's on some great committees, so we're very fortunate to have him as our sponsor, but also as one of your Lake Worth representatives.
One last question, because we've gone way too long. We've gone almost an hour on this thing. You're just very important. What do we have? We have a special election coming in January. Is that the case?
When is Senator? When is
The
it?
Senate
When is
seat is in
when is Senator
January.
Clement? When is the special?
Is it just this? That's one seat.
What is it? January 30th.
Primary.
Yeah, and there's an April 9th.
So it's January and April for our representative.
For your senator.
For a senator.
No. But do you mind if I ask? No, I mean, that basically means that for Senate District, what is that, 31, that basically we're not going to have any representation throughout the session. That basically, as long as, even, it doesn't matter who comes out of the primary, as long as the Republicans run a candidate, we're not going to have any representation because that person.
In the Senate
in
for
the
that
Senate.
seat.
In the Senate, okay.
But you have Representative Lori Berman,
Sure.
who's in the House.
Sure.
But as far as a Senate voice, which is very important, then no, we won't have a senator.
Got nada.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay. And Commissioner Marsko?
And just for clarity, it's not like some of the other issues we have. She holds her House seat, correct? So we still have a House representative?
Through session.
Through session.
Through the session.
Okay. So,
The Resign to Run law in Florida, before you qualify, the Friday before qualifying begins, you just have to notify that you're vacating your seat. You don't leave your seat. You just notify that you're vacating it so people can then run for your House seat or whatever seat it may be. That's how the Resign to Run law works.
great.
Okay. Thank you very much, Richard. Okie dokie. Remember, we moved B out of here to a time uncertain, and then commission liaison reports and comments.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Well, I don't have much other than I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And I hope the weather stays nice and cool like this so we kind of get the real feel. And don't forget to come to the parade on Saturday. And dress up like a Wookiee or a Spaceball guy or whatever. But yeah, it's going to be fun. And the night parades are always the best. So best of the holidays to everybody.
Commissioner
I've got nothing except for Friday I went to Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. We discussed what I said we were going to discuss, which was biosolids and their unregulated application in various watersheds. The consensus was that we basically need to get lots of different people to the table. We need to get farmers to the table. We need to get utility directors like Brian Shields, who's in the room, at the table. And elected officials have to, like ourselves, who supervise people like Michael, who supervise people like Michael, who hold a seat like Brian, who hold a seat on the ECR. We basically have to ask the question, well, just because nobody's squeaking about this issue doesn't mean that we want to continue to send biosolids to agricultural areas where it's being applied and, you know, millions of pounds of this stuff is coming up in our surface water. So that was the only thing I really have to report on.
Mr. Robinson?
Just that it's the holiday season, but it's still an exciting time to, things are happening in Lake Worth, and investors are ribbon cuttings every week. It's fantastic progress being made to better our city. And happy holidays to everybody.
Commissioner Amoroso?
Yes, and a lot of that going on. Tomorrow we have a ribbon cutting for 2J's in the morning for their new renovation. Thursday we have the new 7-Eleven ribbon cutting. Thursday afternoon we have 3 of Hearts, which is a new restaurant on downtown on Lucerne. That's at 6 p.m. Please, everybody come join us. 3 of Hearts on Lucerne. It's right next to the French place in the social house. We embrace them and look forward to that, 6 o'clock Thursday afternoon. And I just want to thank the residents of Lake Worth. I ran, if you don't know, I ran unopposed. Another 3 years. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your love and support. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone. Very excited. We've got a lot of good stuff coming. Again, the parade is this Saturday, so please bring your kids. We want to have, I mean, where else do you get a nighttime holiday parade where you get to have all those great lights and everything, and it's just such a wonderful time. So we hope you bring your friends and come on out early and have a good time. Also, let's see, I want to thank the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce. This morning they had a Have Coffee with the Mayor. They're starting this new series, and I got to have coffee with some great business folks in the community, so thank you for that. We've got, what else going on? 2J's, you mentioned all the ribbon cuttings I was going to mention. 3 of Hearts, okay. MPO board meeting on Thursday. We're going to actually be down in Boca Raton for that meeting. It's the 40th anniversary of the MPO, and that is the meetings at 9 a.m. is our regular standing meeting, and that usually goes till about 11, and then they'll have a lunch afterwards for their anniversary. Employee Appreciation Day, I want a little shout out for that. We've got our employees that we love so very much and do so much for us, and we can't get anything done without them, that's for sure. And we appreciate them, so there'll be an Employee Appreciation Day at the Casino Ballroom. I want to invite my fellow commissioners to please come and join and say hey.
When is that?
It is at, I think, 9 a.m.?
7:30.
7?
We got the shift.
Oh, we have shifts, okay.
11:30.
So it starts early in the morning, it's like 7 a.m. and then goes till 1 o'clock, is that right?
Friday.
On Friday, or all day on Friday. Looks like it's all day on Friday. Also, we have, that's the parade, that's that. Okay, lots of stuff going on, I don't know.
Mayor, can I just clarify, the employee appreciation
Just for staff.
is just for staff? I didn't want anybody to think that was open to the public appreciation events.
yeah.
We'd have,
Appreciation for our staff.
it's the internal staff.
It is, and I
just wanna
invited our
clarify
fellow
that, yeah.
commissioners to attend, yeah.
Marshall will show up.
No.
Peggy's working.
And again, thank you to everyone. I hope you have a very healthy, happy, safe, joyous, prosperous new year, and a very special time with your loved ones. Thank you so much. All right. Moving on to public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda items. We have a card from Alice Mann.
Hi, I'm Alice Mann, 518 North Federal Highway. I was expecting to come here tonight and hear the setting of the ballot, which I thought was a pretty simple, straightforward process, which is routinely done. So since that didn't happen, I have two questions. One is, in the interest of transparency, I'd like to know what those issues are that have resulted in the ballot not being set. And the second is, I would ask if that, if the issue has to do with a particular candidate, that candidate be contacted for any clarification that would be needed.
Thank you. Any other cards?
No, ma'am. That's it.
Okay, seeing there are none, moving on to approval of, we don't have any minutes. Consent agenda, there's nothing on that item either, so moving on to public hearings. Ordinance number 2017-28. City, no, the other one was the resolution.
Okay.
Did we move this one off too, Glenn?
No, this is still on.
No, this is
Then you'll
second
have to read the ordinance for this one, Glenn.
Okay. Ordinance number 2017-28 of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, amending Chapter 16 Pensions and Retirement, Article 2 Employees Retirement System, Section 16-26, participation in the pension plan, and provide an extension of the one-time option for specified employees to remain in the existing benefit structure, providing for severability, repeal of laws of conflict, codification, and an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion.
Seconded.
Seconded by Commissioner Hardy. Any public comment cards?
No, ma'am.
Seeing there are none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We have no unfinished business, no new business, nothing under the electric utility,
No,
so
ma'am.
I'll move right on to the city attorney's report.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year.
Okay.
I have an accompaniment tonight, too. That's
I was
pretty
gonna say, I
good.
thought that was a soundtrack.
That's
I
$10.
don't usually get that. I appreciate that.
And I would like to say that we're gonna be reinstituting the jar on the dais in
$10.
the new year. And that means every time somebody's phone or electronic device goes off, $5 will go into the jar. It's a little bit cheaper than the last time around. $10 if anyone looks at their phone and takes an electronic message from anywhere.
Is there a second reading on that?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why are we going to $5?
Why are we going to $5?
Keep it at 10.
Because nobody was putting it in last time and we
Well, no,
stopped.
you stay at $10.
Madam,
I'll make, Commissioner Hardy?
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question of the city attorney at this time.
No.
No.
No, I'm already on the next part. We're at the city manager.
May I ask a question of the city manager at this point?
Stop the city manager.
I actually, so I agree with Alice. I think with Miss Mann, I think in the interest of transparency, I mean, I'm unawares here. I think the public is kind of unawares. I think we kind of need to know what's happening here as to why we can't set the ballot.
And what's the
Today.
legal issue then?
That's $20.
That's $20, Mr. Robinson.
They got these buttons on the side where you lower the
Called
volume.
off or not carrying them into commission meeting.
I just didn't see the agenda item until just before the meeting, and just had some questions, and we have time. I mean, we have plenty of time to set it. I want to make sure it was set right, so I was going to contact the supervisor's office and make sure I'm on the same page. So I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I expect it to be back at your next meeting.
But it might be legal matters.
Is it legal or is it, what is it?
Yeah, no, I have a question about the setting of the ballot, the actual order that people appear on the ballot.
Okay. Okay. I see.
I mean, everybody's qualified. There's no question about qualification. It simply is what order do people appear on the ballot.
Okay.
And the names have been read,
Right.
so we all know who we're,
So the names are this, everything's fine.
Everything's the same. It's
Okay.
just a question of what's the order that they appear in.
I thought it was the names that changed, only the,
Protecting the innocent.
yeah.
Okay, city manager, do you have anything else?
Happy holidays.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hardy, seconded by the Vice Mayor. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Happy holidays, everyone. Happy holidays.
You gotta say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Oh, I forgot.